here. Ladies and gentlemen, while you are sitting there in your seats listening to our wonderful orators here, please grab this slip, fill it out with some constructive criticism, feedback, constructive feedback. We like hearing what we did right and what we can improve on. All right. Here we go. Tim Conyers has taught music for several years and from time to time introduces people to the world of concert music, typically called classical. Today he's going to join us on a fast-paced journey through 700 years of music. Would you please welcome Toastmaster Tim Conyers with a speech entitled "The Classical Music You Only Thought You Knew."
Thank you. The history of classical music can be categorized into 7 eras of music, coming from the Western European tradition. Many of us think of classical music as being all of these eras of music, but actually it was one small period of time. Let's begin with the medieval era, going from 1200 to 1450. Pretend that you're in Paris and in the year 1300 and you've just entered Cathedral Notre Dame, and you'd be hearing this. Beautiful, isn't it? All it is one melody, one voice, lots of voices, but one voice really, in an a cappella manner. Well, time marched on as we enter the Renaissance era, and from roughly 1450 to 1600, you would hear music similar to what you're going to hear now. And it coincides with many of the great Renaissance artists, such as Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. You still had church music, but the social order changed. And then you had music comprised of the flute, the lyre, and other types of instruments. And you'd be in a secular setting. Perhaps you were invited to a castle. So pretend you're there now. You're entering this castle. And it's going to be a dinner, probably a 7 or 8 course dinner. And there'll be musicians, entertainment, singers singing madrigals. And the whole thing is glorious. Not a lot of instruments here, but still very effective, is it not? Very almost harmonious, we might say. Well, time marches on, as time does, and you find yourself in the Baroque era of music, roughly 1600 to 1730. 2 great composers come to mind, Haydn and Bach. Haydn wrote, Handel and Bach. Handel wrote the Messiah and the Hallelujah Chorus from that piece of work. And Bach composed this, Sheep May Safely Graze. Notice it's a little different than what you just heard before. And Bach was not only prolific in creating music, but also prolific in creating children. He was a very busy fellow, in more ways than one. This genre had a lot more ornamentation, more advanced organ music for worship. Well, this era segues into what is formally called the classical era, really a small area of time from 1730 to 1800, with composers such as Vivaldi and the Four Seasons, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven. Mozart, Ein Klein Nachtmusik. I'm sure you recognize this piece. How many of you recognize this piece? What you may not know is that Mozart was a bust. He was from here up. But scholars will insist that he was happily married. But Mrs. Mozart wasn't. She went all the way to the floor. Bust, floor. Well, Beethoven continued to compose music and decompose. And as he continued to do so, he segued into the Romantic era. Not kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy necessarily, but the style was such that the bounds of musical composition began to be pushed. The era lasted from roughly 1830 to 1900. Composers such as Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Wagner composed all kinds of beautiful melodies that pulled upon the heartstrings, like what you're listening to now, which is Swan Lake, written by Tchaikovsky. You had composers such as Chopin, Rossini, Respighi, Fettuccini, Tortellini, and Lamborghini. All harmonious for sure. And then, in the country of France, in the last decade of the 19th century, you have the advent of the Impressionistic era. That's right, it goes along with those Impressionistic artists that you probably are very familiar with, such as Monet and Renoir. These composers such as Debussy, Ravel, Saint-Saëns, and others expanded the aspect of music, the bounds of music, into exquisite harmonies of structure, sort of creating a dreamy sort of feel to it. Just listen to the music. Let it sort of wash over you right now. You're listening to Debussy's Afternoon of a Faun. Debussy was French in every sort of the way. He loved French art, French pastries, French poodles, French onion soup, French fries, and French women, who sometimes got him into trouble. Nevertheless, his music lives on. Finally, the advent of the 20th century. Many composers expanded the structure even more. Listen to this next piece written by Gustav Holst in 1917. Tell me what it comes to mind when you hear it. Would somebody like to share? What is it? Thank you. Let's bring it down a little bit. Let's get some input here. Raise your hand if you'd like to say. What does it make you feel? Sound. Action. What else? Anything else? Sorry? Yes? Chase. The chase.
Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah. Makes you wonder where, or not wonder, where John Williams got some of his music from. It's part of the planets. Now, for me, when I heard it, I thought of Western movies from the 1940s and 50s. That's how it affected me. Other composers such as Shostakovich and Stravinsky pushed the bounds of music, and away we go, and the influence of the Western and romantic tradition of orchestral music found its way into many of our American composers such as John Williams. Let's hear a little bit of John Williams, shall we? With those harmonies and melodies, the drums, the timpani, and big orchestra sound, you know he was influenced by all these great composers. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 700 years of music in 7 minutes. Listen often, listen wisely, and with variety. And I'm sure you'll discover that you like more than you thought you would. Mr. Toastmaster. Awesome, man. Thank you.
That was absolutely fantastic. I think we were all very attuned to that speech. Okay, now we're getting there.
Thank you.